My name is Quincy Russell Green. Been here for 18 years. Some of you know me ever since kindergarten. I see some of my former students. Hey guys. My sons went through here. They were homeschooled and then we moved here. And they joined a public school for the first time. It's kind of a shocker for all of us. So, I've been in Vermont close to 30 years. My husband was born and raised here, so he's a Vermonter. I'm not. I'm a transplant. I like it. I've had to adjust. The adjustments have not been easy, but we did it. We made it. So, I'm open for questions or whatever you want.
Quincy,
Yes, Mrs. Light.
we've been talking a lot about diversity, and we know that Vermont is not a very diverse state. How is growing up in Texas different from raising your children here in Vermont?
Well, where I grew up, we literally had some of everybody. I lived in Houston, was born and raised there, but moved to my grandparents' farm after my dad passed away. So my mom moved back home, which was out in the country, what some people call rural, what we call the bottoms. But even there, we had Mexicans for neighbors. We had a German family owned the meat market down the road from us. So kind of got to experience some of their cultural changes and foods that they like. We had a family. It's a little different when you say Mexico and Spain are not the same. I learned that as a child because another family that started school with us, the family was from Spain. But what surprised me was they looked like white people, but they weren't. They spoke Spanish. They spoke a different type of Spanish, a Spanish I did not understand. I grew up with a lot of Mexican kids because my uncles, 3 of my uncles and cousins were cowboys. So I got to hang around ranch hands and learned a lot from them and a lot of different languages. So it was different coming here to where there was no one but whites. When my husband first said he wanted to move us here, I did a little research, and at that time, back in 1987, Vermont was considered the whitest state in the United States. Less than 1% of the population was anything but white. In the years that I've been here, I have watched a very interesting cultural switch. The first people I noticed to start slowly moving in were, I'm not a politically correct person, I'm not a disrespectful person, but I noticed that more Vietnamese were moving in. And then with all the trouble that happened in Somalia, a lot of Somalis are moving here. But very few black people were moving here yet. That swing really didn't start happening, I'd say probably till about 1996. Now, I lived in Burlington. Let me rewind. Initially, my husband moved us to St. Albans. Some of the things that you're growing up seeing now, the park, that stuff wasn't here when I was moved here. Taylor Park was basically some land with some trees on it and a couple of little sidewalks around it. It's a very pretty park now, but it didn't look like that at first. Main Street didn't look like it looks now. When I walked down the street, some people would stop and stare. Some people would make remarks. but I wasn't raised to look at people's skin. My fraternal grandfather was Irish, so my fraternal grandmother was Black and Cherokee. My maternal grandfather, my mother's father, was from Louisiana. He married a woman who was Black and Sioux. So we never, it wasn't until I joined school, I got into a public school, that I saw that there were differences. Because we just weren't raised to look at anything else other than the person. My first experience with school, they moved us, when we moved out of Houston to the rural part of town, the school they moved us to had been a all-white school, and suddenly we were there. And I had bad experiences, but all in all, I liked school. I loved learning. I even got over the teachers that didn't like any of us. We adjusted. In life, you learn to do that. The thing I've taught my kids, yeah, sweetie, please stop me, because otherwise it's like,
I was wondering, how did you feel though, but you said that when you're walking down the street, people made remarks and everything, and they would stare. How did you handle that situation? How exactly did you feel when that happened?
At first, I would get angry because I didn't understand why they were staring. You know, I'm just another person. It was hard at first, but I also had to realize that if I start behaving in a negative way, then how is that going to impact my kids? Because they're going to have to grow up here. So I dealt with it. I wasn't happy all the time. Don't get me wrong. We had a tree in the backyard that was missing a lot of bark from it.
Is Vermont that different from Texas?
Very different. It's different almost just in the things you'll see, the things that are celebrated there that aren't celebrated here. Just the people in general. I mean, you can be a stranger walking down the street and somebody say, "How you doing today?" And they expect an answer. And that was one of the things that was hard for me to adjust to, was saying, you know, "How you doing?" and someone looking right through me and not responding. I'm not used to that, still not. This young lady had her hand up first.
How was your experience moving here from Texas?
Oh, that was an adventure all in itself, honey. That was me, my husband, and infant child in a 76 Plymouth with everything we own loaded on it, and 2 dogs and 3 cats. Yeah, and then trying to come into Vermont and going up hills, which I had, yeah. There are still places here on roads where I go, you just way too close to the side, get over there. Because there's way too much space down there. Mr. Charles had his hand up.
I do know the climate is very different. It doesn't snow as much as Vermont.
Okay, thank you, because there is no.
I know they had a 1 inch sometimes, as much as Vermont. But one thing I think what you said was, so if you said good morning, now if you walk the street in Texas, expect people to say good morning, and they want to engage in some kind of conversation. So
Yeah,
friendly environment. So in Vermont, and it was not the case. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was just kind of, you know, how I speak even here at school, you know, "How you doing this morning?" And somebody will answer. And when I first came here, that wouldn't happen. But don't get me wrong, there are knotheads in Texas too. Trust me, there are plenty of them. But it's almost, I don't know, it's different. The climate, yeah, ooh, yes, Lord, because I know what's coming. What, baby?
I've heard many stories from my mom about Texas because she was born and raised in Tyler, Texas, and she always she just recently she's like, want to know what the temperature is, and then she's like, it's like here it's like 50, and then she's like it's 84, and I'm like, oh, she talks so much about it.
Well, after living up here for about 5 years before I went home for my first visit, we went home, the boys were still pretty small. And up here, you know, I've gotten used to 60 degrees is warm. So when we got home, we went to visit in the spring, so 60 down there is a different kind of 60. So it's 60 degrees, yay. I'm opening windows and, you know, opening the curtains, and my mom is freaking out because she's like, it's cold in the house. Shut the window, close that door, put the blinds back down, and turn the heat back on. It's like, we're dying in here. So that was when I realized I started to acclimate. So it's kind of funny, but it does happen. Yeah, baby.
Who inspired you to do what you do now?
God. Because when I left high school, I used to look at teachers and go, and I was one of those nerds. I had my head stuck in a book. Didn't want to, you know, I was an athlete, but between books and athletes, the rest of it, the world could pass me by. I didn't care. And I used to watch kids act up in class and go, what a teacher. But now you need to keep in mind, too, in Texas, we use corporal punishment. I know that wigs folks out here up. I mean, they flip when they hear that. Corporal punishment is you act up in class, teacher will go get 2 more teachers and take you outside and whack you on your behind 2 or 3 times. And then send you back inside to sit down. That usually tightens you up for about 2 or 3 months. But I just used to think, you know, these teachers have to put up with somebody yelling at me. I will never, ever, ever, once I get out of school, never, ever, ever be a teacher or anything. And funny enough, found my sons in school and I needed a job. Funny how things work out, because here I am. Pilot.
Overall, are you glad that you moved here?
Overall, yes. Fall is probably my favorite season because I still get warm days without the snow. And I get the colors. So I like that. Spring and summer, yay. But yeah, all in all, yes, I like it here now. I didn't at first, but I do now. Yes, Ty.
What do you think you'd do if you didn't move to Vermont?
I'd still be in Texas, honey. Probably living out near Tyler, because I got folks out that way too. We're gonna spatter it all over Texas. Sad.
How was your experience in a school that was all white with teachers that didn't like you?
I had some experiences here when I first started. But I had made up my mind when I started this that being in school wasn't about me. So whatever issues I had to put those in my hip pocket until I got home. So all in all, the few incidences I had were enough that I could pray about it and let it go. Let me get somebody that I haven't talked to. Yeah, baby, right here.
Well, it is so cold in the morning, like when you get up.
Oh, don't say that, my knees don't want to hear that. It is so cold in the morning, my knees are like old doors. They don't like it at all. From here up, I'm okay. Yes, baby.
What was your biggest concern coming to Vermont?
It being all white and me being black. And raising my kids here. Let me get somebody I haven't talked to, baby.
Anything in Vermont that was you guys the same in Texas, like outside,
Well, contrary to you have to understand, I did not know what a flatlander was. when I first came here and folks were calling me that, and I didn't know what it was, so I had to look it up. Texas does have mountains. They're not as big as these, but they have them. We have snow. There are some similarities. The biggest things that stand out as the same is what it looks like in the spring and summer, because everybody's just waking up. As far as I can tell, remembering trees, the trees don't turn the colors they do here. But it's fun to crunch the leaves on magnolia trees, and there are things we can do down there in the fall you can't do over here. You can't go pecan picking. I can still fish, and I don't have to be out on ice. You know, things like that. Both things I like to do, can't do them up here. No, I'm not going ice fishing. Not happy. Yes.
Is there any like animal encounters that you've had there and not up here? Like,
Oh, I've had plenty of animal encounters back home. Nothing I'm gonna encounter up here. You have to understand, growing up in the country, back in the late 50s and 60s, you know, things were still pretty racially tense. So the summers, like here, you have, you know, things you can do in the summer. When you live out in the country, and I mean way up there, you get inventive and you find ways to make money. So my brothers and I used to hunt snakes. We sell the skins. All the nice boots and wallets and watch bands and hat bands. I think we drastically reduced the snake population around, and we hunted everything from copperheads to rattlesnakes. So that and hunting, we used to chase javelinas for fun, which is, you know, I mean, looking as an adult, now looking back, it was like, yeah, that was dangerous. Javelinas are wild pigs. Wild pigs. They attack. They don't run well. So it was quite a feat for us to chase them. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure those pigs used to look at us and go, oh, here they come again. Run, just run. They'll go away after a while. Up here, I saw my first moose, which was very just like, wow, these things they really are big. We don't have anything that big in Texas. Now, the deer in Texas are bigger than the ones up here, but we don't have anything in Texas as big as a moose other than a draft horse. That's about it. Fishing, crawfish is kind of funny, because first time I saw one up here, I said, oh, that's a baby. And Mom said, no, that's a crawfish. I said, no, that's a baby crawfish, because crawfish are like this big and red. And he said, no, you're talking about a lobster. I said, no, that's a crawfish. So we had to have that debate until I showed him, and I was like, see, that's a crawfish. Yes, sweetie.
If you could take away anything from the experiences you've had from going from Texas to here, what would be something you'd be able to take away from it?
Not to judge people until you know them. Some of the folks here were not nice, and if I had judged everyone else by the experience I had with the first white people I encountered here, I wouldn't have become friends with Mrs. Lane and a lot of other people, Mr. Coffin. My kids wouldn't have had a good time with him. So one of the things I had to learn, some things you have to learn whether you want to learn them or not, is that I needed to reserve judgment for another day. Wait to see how the person is before I write that person off. And yeah, there will be times in your life when you're gonna come across someone that you're gonna have to write them off. It happens to all of us. Everybody cannot be your friend. Yeah, baby.
My question is similar to Isaac's. My Nana, she said that she got bit by I think it was a brown recluse spider on the arm, and it rotted her arm. But it's good now. But other than the snakes or whatever and the stuff you said, is there any weather like bad weather, because my mom talked about tornadoes up there. Was there any like bad weather and other crazy insects or anything like that that you saw? Or
Weather-wise, Texas is in Tornado Alley. As a child, I survived Carla when she hit. As an adult, I was a lifeguard in Galveston when Alicia hit. I watched that one take the fronts off of buildings. I watched that one take a sheet of tin from a roof and drive it halfway through a tree. Cars lifted and smashed. And, I know, we have to be careful about religion in school and all of that, but see, I know when God watches over me, because I sat in my apartment window because I had nowhere to go. I was in Galveston. The only thing I owned for real was 10-speed. Y'all don't run anymore. I had a 10-speed. That was my only transportation, and yeah, you're not gonna pedal a 10-speed and 57-mile-an-hour winds coming at you. Now, if I was headed in another, it'd scoot me right along. But otherwise, my mom and one of my brothers and I stood and watched the house across the bayou from my mother. Had a big barn, horse barn, and about 4 or 5 pine trees in the pasture. So the hurricane came, didn't touch the house, but it took the barn, took the trees, it completely cleaned the pasture out, left the fence. It's funny how they work. My mom, we watched it lift the roof of the back porch, and then it set the posts. It pulled them up out of the ground and set them right on the edges of the porch, so the posts were balanced. The weird things you see, you watch the plate glass window. Took some shingles off, but I've also seen a tornado as a young child. Yeah, sometimes we think my dad wasn't playing with a full stack pancakes. He tried to outrun one, so we wound up having to go to an underpass and go up into the girders, and it passed over. It took a while. We never found the car, but we survived it. And if you wonder why I'm so rough, I have 6 brothers. I don't have any sisters, and I'm right in the middle of them. So I didn't do the girly stuff. I played football. I played hardball. I didn't play softball. So yeah, my brothers didn't cut me any slack. Yep, sweetie.
Was when I know you guys, did you guys get? All right, I have 2 questions. The first one is, did you guys get a lot of snow?
No, not in the region where I live, where we all live now. Dallas, when we lived in Dallas, we used to get snow, and it would be snow. I mean, not like this, but for us, it would last, a couple of months. So it's like, snow. But now I find it funny when it snows, and back home if it snows, everybody wrecks everywhere. They just slide and crash into each other like bumper cars. Right here, this young man.
What was your favorite part of Texas and your favorite part of Vermont?
All of Texas is my favorite part, honey. It's in my blood. It'll never come out. And Vermont, my most favorite place in Vermont. I can't answer that one yet because I haven't finished exploring. I just discovered Scion Ranch. It's in Groton. It's a really neat place. There's this lake that's isolated, and you're only allowed to fly fish. So I think I'm gonna have to learn how to fly fish. Because I already know how to fish with everything else, except for what they fish with up here. Ooh, I don't use much. Yes, sir.
Have you ever had encounters in Texas with alligators or in St. Albans with snapping turtles?
Yeah. Snapping turtles here, no. In Texas, I told you we were little terrors when we were little, so we used to go harass the alligators. But we ate them too. So. Yeah, I bet it wasn't. one point, Texas had banned alligator hunting because folks were hunting them a little too much. But you have to understand, I grew up in a time when folks still hunted to put food on the table. So we ate deer, we ate rabbit, we ate squirrel, won't touch an armadillo. We ate fish. I mean, you know, for the most part, like most folks, but we did hunt, and alligator was part of it, and depending upon who cooks it, it's good. If you get somebody that's inexperienced, you might as well retread your tires. Will?
If you could have lived in any other state besides Texas or Vermont, what state would you live in?
Texas? That's just me, baby. It's in my blood. I like it for all its, and trust me, for the bad experiences I may have had here or have had here, I had just as many back home. It was still pretty dangerous for my husband and I to be married. My husband was white. So that was dangerous. At one time, it was illegal. There was a couple that were married in Texas. It was a white man and a black woman, and they put her in jail. But as she served, I think she had to serve 2 years. And when she got out, they went on with, by then the law had been abolished, so they went on to have 5 or 6 kids, I believe.
I know there was a case like that in Virginia called Loving versus Virginia.
That was it. At one point they went to
Loving
Texas
versus
just
Virginia.
because they thought
They had to
they
get
would be
out.
safer there.
They had to get out of Virginia. Well, the sentence was to go to jail or to get out of Virginia. They got out of it too. They have that law in Virginia, and I used to live there.
Yeah.
I had a question on the financial side. How is like taxes in Texas? Is it the people here get pay more taxes here or in Texas?
Well, here you have a property tax. And see, they don't have that in Texas. Your state tax that you pay, that keeps the highways clean. Stuff like that. Also,
How about the school?
I got involved in the school system of going to school. So that one I couldn't ask you about. My mom, she paid school taxes. I'm not sure what she paid because, you know, I wasn't in that part of her life anymore. So, and since she's passed away, my brother took care of all of that. So that's a question I couldn't answer. Yes, Ms. Camilo?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of it, to sort of tag on to what you were saying about having had bad experiences with white people here and bad experiences in Texas. I think in Vermont, I grew up in Vermont, and I was told that Vermont was a place where people were good and liberal, and we had the Underground Railroad here way back when, and we were the first state to free slaves, and the impression was pretty clear to me that racism was not a problem, which nobody ever challenged me on because everybody around me was white. So I came up kind of believing that Vermont was a special place and had to learn that racism does exist here. But I also hear people talking about a different kind of form of racism that exists in especially liberal communities in Vermont. And I'm interested if you saw the difference between the kind of racism, racial tension that you might see in Texas and what you experienced here.
Here, racism is more subdued. It's more, I'll smile and talk to you.
Bring this down.
But when I get home,
He probably wants it back.
I'll discuss you the way
I probably want to head
I
down
really
and
do.
take this down.
Back home,
He wants me to return it, and I'll have to leave for band soon. I don't return it before band. And
if you run into the really racist,
yeah, he
white
said that
or
in
black,
the previous times.
because they're on both
when
sides of the fence,
They borrowed the chip to thing. They wanted
they'll
me,
call
he wanted
you
me to
out.
bring it back.
for what you are.
Don't make
Or
sure
what
nobody
they
takes
teach
that
you.
out.
Here, it's more like a tolerance, which is something I really don't like. I'm kind of that straight line person. You either gonna like me or don't like me, but don't tolerate me, because then I'll just annoy you on purpose. For me, if you don't like me because of the color of skin, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But say that. Be honest with me and you. Because if you tolerate me, that shows, to me, that's almost saying, I'm gonna pretend you really don't exist at all. So you're just kinda like a tree, I'm gonna pass you by and keep going. Here, my first real encounter where a woman addressed me as a nigger. I felt my husband he froze. Because, you know, he wasn't sure what I'd do. And it took me a minute to kind of suck in some air and start breathing again. And I asked her why. Did she call me that? One, I hadn't even spoken to her yet. Hadn't done anything to her to offend her. All I did was walk in the door. And she couldn't answer me. And I remember telling her, you need to grow up. And she said, well, you know, Vermont is a state. And she said the same thing to me. We had the Underground Railroad. We did this. I said, well, I guess you failed your ancestors. Because you just insulted all the ones that helped slaves. When you confront racism for what it is, and what it is simply is a lack of understanding. When you do not understand something, you fear it. If you fear it, you will put a name to it and fight it. All it takes is just open up your mind. Yeah, there are people in the world you're not gonna like. There will be people in your family you do not like. But open up your mind. Search yourself first. Then look at that other person. Because I'm going to tell you something, you cannot change people. You cannot change them. All you can do is change you. So you got to think about that. Because it's hard. It's hard when someone comes up to you and calls you something that is hurtful, offensive, and not you. It's hard to deal with that. And you can try to be nice to that person, you can try to be friendly, and they may even change their language, but you won't ever change the way that they think. Only they can do that. Now, maybe the things you do will help them to change the way that they think. But you can't make people change. Just like there are going to be some people, you're never going to get them to stop hating. Because it's what they do. It's what they like to do. Some racism is born out of generational ignorance. Well, you know, my daddy was in the Klan and he said this, and that's just how it is, and that's how we do things. But then there are those who do it because they have bad experience. You know, one of the classic things is, I had a woman tell me she didn't like black people because a black man ran over her dog. Like, it was an accident, yeah, but he ran. So in her mind, that's how they all are. It's funny, the little things that will trigger a person's thoughts and their thought patterns. And that's why you can't change the way a person thinks until you change the way you react to it. Now, the day that woman called me a nigga in a grocery store, if I had have been the same 18-year-old I used to be, yeah, I'd have flipped on her in a heartbeat. But I had to change because of my children and my husband. Because everything you do has a reaction to someone else. Somewhere it's gonna affect them. You may not see the effect, but it's there. And you can hurt a person physically, that'll mend. They'll get over the pain. But if you scar a person in their mind, that doesn't go away. You know, the old adage, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, or words will never hurt me. Whoever wrote that needs a spanking. Because that is the most nonsensical thing I have ever heard in my life. I've been kicked by cows, ran over by horses, had my knees cracked by them. That does not hurt nearly as bad as having a teacher call you a name and slap you out of a chair. I hated teachers for a long time. It took me a long time to start liking teachers. I liked learning. Didn't mean I had to like who was teaching me. It took a teacher in 5th grade who introduced me to Shakespeare. For some unearthly reason, I had a knack for understanding Old English. And I remember the one thing she gave us on the test, I don't know if you've ever read The Highwayman, but there's a stanza in there about the great equivocator. And everybody was like, I don't get it, this is stupid. And I wrote on my test, it's death. Death equalizes everybody. I don't care who you are, I don't care what color your skin is, how much money you have, don't have, what you do. In the end, you're all gonna be butt down, face up with dirt in your face. That's it. That's gonna happen to everybody. Cryogenics ain't gonna save you, honey. You're gonna die. That's your great equivocator. In life, you have to be one. You can be one. But it has to start with you. Y'all are the ones we're looking at to change this. That's a heavy load to carry, but it's on you. It's your job now. I protested. I've done my, you know, sit in, sit down, and sit ups. I've done them. We cut a path, but it's time for y'all to pave the road now. Y'all have to start making the changes. And it can't be you. Fighting isn't gonna get it. Not the physical thing. It's just not gonna get it. If you really wanna make the changes, they're gonna have to start here first. You're gonna have to think of the ways to get others to see, not force them to think your way, but get them to see another way of looking at things. Because otherwise, this is gonna perpetuate itself. I'm sorry, somebody had their hands up. I'm sorry, baby.
I was gonna say, what was your favorite childhood memory in Texas?
My favorite childhood memory?
And your favorite memory in Vermont?
Woo! Let's see, my most favorite childhood memory. I would probably say the one that really pops in mind right now is the first time my uncle put me on a horse. I was 3 years old, and he had a stud named Jimmy Jinks. I think he weighed about 1,900-pound quarter horse. He was huge and beautiful chestnut, and my uncle put me on him, and I was hooked. I even worked as a cowhand for a while. I was hooked. That was my best, because it was like, woo, hey, this is it for me. Everybody needs to go back to riding horses. Put the cars away. This is what we need to be doing right here.
Yeah,
So,
really fun.
in Vermont, my favorite, Can't be a childhood memory. My favorite one would probably be the day we bought our house, and we had our first Christmas in the house. That was cool, cause the kids were sliding down the stairs on their butts. Cause that was fun. Cause I told them I used to do it in my aunt's house. Yeah, that was fun. But until you crash into the table and the mirror falls off the wall, and then it's spankings all around. In the back, Noah.
Did you like Houston, Texas more than St. Albans, or do you like St. Albans more than Texas?
I like to
Well, honey, I love Texas. It's full of everything and everybody. We have Czech Fest, we have Oktoberfest, we have Fiestas Patrias. Find something and we'll celebrate it. We even have a mosquito festival. I don't go with that. That's like, yeah, no, we're not celebrating something that annoys me to no end. But you find something, we'll celebrate it. And if we can figure it out, we'll fry it. We've learned to fry butter.
We have time for one more question, because you.
Yep, I've got, oh, my little buddy maybe.
Yeah.
Ms. Quincy, what kind of advice would you give, I guess side conversation. What kind of advice would you give our middle schoolers who have limited exposition to diversity, or kids who like maybe the people who are close to them make those kind of statements that we find offensive? What kind of advice would you give them how to deal with that?
Well, first I'd say if it's someone that you're friends with, you might want to wait till you have a quiet moment to kind of pull them off to the side and just ask them, why don't you say that? And take that conversation from there. Because, we forget sometimes that, your friends make remarks and you think, oh, that's just my friend, they didn't really mean that. It's not the intent, it's the act itself. So I would say ask them. If it's someone who you don't know who's making that comment, you can speak to them. Say, I'm sorry, but could you not say that again? Could you, because that bothers me. But I know that takes a lot of courage, because that's scary. That's very scary to have someone say something and you don't really know them, but, that bothered me. That, I didn't find that funny. So it takes a lot of, even thinking about it now, for me to have to confront somebody, my heart will start to race, because it's kind of like, I don't know how they're going to react if I say this. But then there's that part of me that says, you're wrong. You shouldn't have said that. Think it all you want. How many times have you heard teachers say, think it all you want, just don't say it? It's that simple. Mr. Young.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that statement from
Yes.
a bunch of teachers. Sometimes you.
Yes, just a little bit. Yes, and you're learning. I'm so proud of you. Yes, Miss Bobby Jo.
So I just wanted to know, how different was Burlington when you moved there compared to like St. Albans?
Oh, even now Burlington is completely different from St. Albans.
Like people-wise, like what's the
Still.
difference?
Here, you have different races moving in, different cultures moving in, but St. Albans is still reluctant to open up. Whereas Burlington, it's got its pockets, but for the most part, I think what helps is that you have 2 universities, and you've got people coming from everywhere, other countries. So there it's more of a cultural melting pot, whereas here it's still very rural, and whether we like it or not, people in rural areas tend to, their thinking is a little more narrow. So there's that reluctance to change. That's one baby, and I got a scoop.
What's the favorite animal that you ever ended up catching?
Let's go. I had a pet squirrel, but a skunk. I was in college as a studying to be a veterinarian, and if you catch them young enough and remove their mustache, it's like having a cat. Taught him to use the litter box. Everything freaked my mom out. But he was fine. I had a pet squirrel named George. George. The only exotic pet I ever had was a Jew, and I got her because I worked for my professor, who was he was an animal science professor, but he was also the county vet. And a couple who worked for National Geographic always brought their St. Bernards in for their yearly checkups and everything, and they had this kinkajou, and they were getting ready to leave the country, and they couldn't take her with them, so they were trying to find a home for her, so I took her. I had her 3 months before my mom, she wrapped her tail around my mom's neck, and Mom was like, nope, it's gotta go. It ain't staying in this house with us anymore. Look a kinkajou up. It's called the South American honey bear. Look one up. They're very easy to care for, but after Cuddles put her tail around my mother's neck, she's like, it'll strangle me in my sleep. Can't stay. So that was it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For coming down and speaking.
Thank you for inviting me, folks. I hope it helps you in any way. And if you want to ask me anything, look me up. I'm around until 3:15. Oh, thank you, honey. Thank you, guys.